Could you legally buy an acre of land on the moon today?
For millions of people worldwide, the answer was a resounding yes, thanks to one ambitious entrepreneur who leveraged a legal loophole to build a multi-million-dollar empire. This isn't a science fiction story, it's the true account of Dennis Hope, a man who, in 1980, looked up at the night sky and saw not just a celestial body, but prime real estate waiting to be claimed. His bold declaration would spark a legal and philosophical debate that continues to this day, challenging our understanding of ownership beyond Earth.
But how did he manage to convince so many, and what was the obscure legal text he claimed gave him this power? It all began with a letter. In 1980, Dennis Hope, then a struggling salesman from California, sent a formal declaration of ownership of the Moon, Mars, and several other celestial bodies to the United Nations, the US government, and the former Soviet Union. He cited the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, a foundational piece of international law, which states that no nation can claim sovereignty over space. Hope argued that while nations were prohibited, the treaty made no explicit mention of private individuals. This clever interpretation formed the cornerstone of his entire enterprise.
He waited patiently for a response, fully expecting a challenge. What he received, or rather, what he didn't receive, would change his life and launch a unique business model. The Outer Space Treaty, officially the treaty on principles governing the activities of states in the exploration and use of outer space, including the Moon and other celestial bodies, was signed by over 100 nations. Its Article 2 clearly states, outer space, including the Moon and other celestial bodies, is not subject to national appropriation by claim of sovereignty, by means of use or occupation, or by any other means.
Hope focused on the word national.
He reasoned that if nations couldn't claim it, and no individual had, it was essentially unowned, a vacuum he could fill. His logic, while unconventional, exploited a genuine ambiguity.
But was this an oversight in the treaty, or a deliberate omission? The lack of official challenge left the door wide open for his next move.
With no governmental entity refuting his claim, Hope proceeded to establish the Lunar Embassy Corporation. He began selling deeds to lunar property, offering 1-acre plots for prices ranging from $19.99 to $29.99, plus a small lunar tax and a fee for the lunar deed itself. Each deed came with a specific tract number and quadrant, meticulously charted by Hope himself. The business exploded, fueled by novelty and the human desire to own a piece of the extraordinary. By the early 2000s, Lunar Embassy claimed to have sold over 611 million acres on the Moon, Mars, and Venus. This wasn't just pocket change, it was generating millions of dollars.
But how could such a seemingly absurd venture generate legitimate revenue without legal intervention? Hope's marketing strategy was brilliant in its simplicity and audacity.
He tapped into people's dreams, offering a tangible piece of the cosmos. Celebrities, former US presidents, and millions of ordinary citizens reportedly bought deeds. The allure was undeniable. Owning a piece of the Moon felt like being part of history, a unique gift or investment. His website detailed the legal basis for his claims, making it seem legitimate to many.
He even issued lunar passports and established a galactic government. The sheer volume of sales, reaching into the hundreds of millions of dollars over decades, suggests that skepticism was often outweighed by fascination. But behind the impressive sales figures, a fundamental legal question persisted: were these deeds worth the paper they were printed on?
Here's the harsh legal reality: despite Hope's ingenious interpretation, his claims hold no legal standing under international law. While the Outer Space Treaty doesn't explicitly mention private individuals, legal scholars and international bodies widely agree that its spirit and intent preclude any private ownership of celestial bodies. The treaty aims to ensure space is the province of all mankind, used for peaceful purposes, and not subject to appropriation by anyone. Allowing private individuals to claim ownership would undermine the treaty's core principles and lead to chaos. It's like finding a loophole in a park sign that says "no cars allowed" and arguing it doesn't apply to your personal tank.
The intent is clear, even if the specific word tank isn't there. So, what happens to those who bought land?
Imagine you're one of the millions who purchased a lunar deed. You paid $29.99 for an acre on the Moon, a unique gift for a loved one.
What happens if, hypothetically, humanity establishes a lunar colony and you try to assert your property rights? The short answer is a nothing. your deed would be entirely unenforceable. Courts in the US and other countries would likely dismiss any such claim, citing the Outer Space Treaty and the principle that common heritage of mankind cannot be privately appropriated. There's no legal mechanism to enforce private property rights on celestial bodies, and no government recognizes such claims. The money spent, while not a fortune for most, is essentially for a novelty item, a piece of paper with sentimental value, but no actual legal weight. This reality highlights the difference between a clever marketing ploy and a legally sound transaction. The Outer Space Treaty was born out of the Cold War space race, specifically to prevent any single nation from monopolizing space or weaponizing celestial bodies. Its framers intended a clear prohibition on all forms of appropriation, whether national or private, to ensure equitable access and peaceful use for all. While Hope's argument about the lack of explicit mention of individuals is a literalist one, legal interpretation often goes beyond the exact words to consider the broader intent and purpose of a law. If private claims were allowed, it would create a free-for-all, undermining the very stability the treaty sought to establish. This is a common principle in law. What is not explicitly forbidden for individuals can still be implicitly covered by the spirit of the law, especially in international agreements. One of the key reasons Dennis Hope could continue his business for decades without direct legal intervention is the lack of a clear enforcement mechanism for international space law against private citizens. No single country has jurisdiction over the moon to prosecute him for fraud, and the UN lacks the direct enforcement powers of a national government. While his activities are widely regarded as legally baseless, they don't directly threaten national security or economic stability in a way that would trigger immediate, coordinated international action. It's a legal gray area where the lack of a clear legal pathway for prosecution allowed a novel business to flourish. This unique situation presents a fascinating challenge to how international law adapts to new frontiers. The Dennis Hope case, along with the rise of commercial space ventures, has spurred renewed discussions on space property rights and governance. While the Outer Space Treaty remains foundational, new agreements and proposed frameworks are emerging to address issues like asteroid mining and lunar resource utilization. For instance, the U.S. passed the Space Act of 2015, which grants U.S. citizens the right to own resources they extract from space, but explicitly states it doesn't grant sovereignty or ownership of the celestial body itself. This shows a move towards clarifying resource rights, but consistently avoids recognizing land ownership. The legal landscape is slowly evolving, but the core principle of common heritage for celestial bodies remains dominant, preventing any future lunar embassies from gaining legitimate ground. Dennis Hope's Lunar Embassy has sold an estimated $11 billion worth of deeds since 1980, a staggering sum for what is legally considered a novelty. He even claims to have created an actual lunar currency and a galactic government with a constitution. While his enterprise is often viewed with a mix of amusement and legal disdain, it serves as a powerful illustration of the gaps in international law and the human imagination. Hope himself has always maintained that his business is legitimate, pointing to the absence of direct legal challenge as proof. His legacy, whether as a clever entrepreneur or a legal provocateur, is undeniable, having sparked conversations about property, sovereignty, and humanity's future in space. But his story also serves as a cautionary tale. The crucial takeaway from the Dennis Hope saga is a simple legal principle: buyer beware. When a deal seems too good to be true, especially for something as extraordinary as land on the moon, it almost certainly is. Always verify the legal basis of any property claim, particularly those involving unconventional assets. Consult legal experts, and be skeptical of interpretations that defy the spirit of established international agreements. While the deeds sold by Lunar Embassy might make for a fun novelty gift, they offer no actual property rights. The legal system, though sometimes slow to adapt to new frontiers, ultimately upholds established principles of international cooperation over individual claims to universal heritage. This applies not just to the moon, but to any frontier where property rights are ambiguous. The story of Dennis Hope and his Lunar Embassy is a fascinating blend of entrepreneurial audacity and legal ambiguity. It highlights how a literal interpretation of a treaty, combined with a lack of direct enforcement, allowed a unique business to thrive. However, the legal consensus remains clear: no individual can claim ownership of the moon or any other celestial body. The Outer Space Treaty ensures these are the common heritage of all humankind. The next time you gaze at the moon, remember its vastness is for all to share, not for any single person to own. If you found this deep dive into space law intriguing, consider subscribing for more true legal cases and courtroom stories told simply.